gentlemen, today is an exciting day. Welcome to another episode of the Bardi Shop with my cohort, Mr. Matt Flynn, who's off camera, but he prefers to stay that way, and a guest for the ages, Mr. Robert Nardolillo. How are you, Bobby?
Good, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So, Bobby, there's so many different things we can talk about with you. I literally didn't know where to begin, so I sat down on my lunch break today. I'm like, hey, can we talk to you?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know where to start. So why don't you give us a little feedback? Tell the audience what you've been up to lately.
So I'm a former elected official, but prior to that, my responsibilities as a parent of two teenagers now keeps me losing my mind on a daily basis. My son has just got his permit, and my daughter enters high school this year, so my mind doesn't stop when it comes to that.
Permit?
He just got his permit, and I've been taking him around in the car, and it's trying to explain to a new driver that it's not just you, it's everybody else. And the hundreds of cars that you encounter on simple roads, it's mind-blowing seeing reactions on simple turns and parking and traveling roads with him as a new driver. So that just in itself, being a parent of two teenagers.
You're not gray yet, so you're doing a good job.
Not yet, no, and I'm not touching it up or anything. I'm keeping it very, very natural and just aging, enjoying the aging process. Yeah. But prior to that, was an elected official for 2 terms. I fell into politics because I was not really into politics. Most people aren't, because as soon as you think of a political person, immediately you think,
you get lumped into a category.
Yeah, and whatever comes out of their mouth, is it truthful? Is it this and that? And I never wanted to ever be looked at like that, because I work in public service as a funeral director, my family's business. And that was always what I enjoyed, public service, helping people. And moving to Coventry from Cranston, we had moved out there, and I have cousins out there who are into politics a little bit, and had said, you know, maybe you should entertain the fact of running for office. And I had never in my life thought about running for office or anything like that. And then doing my due diligence, seeing who was representing me or not representing me, for lack of better words, I said, you know what, maybe I should start thinking about this. And I did, and I thought about it for a year, and I visited the State House, and I did my due diligence of going there and seeing committee meetings and State House sessions. And I said, you know, this might be something that I want to take seriously. And then I started to seriously campaign, and I campaigned my whole district. I walked my whole district, and I got to meet a lot of nice people and hear their frustrations, and they were similar to mine. Small business owner, my family. I don't own the business, but hearing from my father and my uncles all the stresses and taxation and everything like that, and all those burdens that they go through, I said, you know what? I get it. I get why I'm driving down Tioga and I see all these storefronts that are empty. It's the American dream for you to be able to have your own business and to be able to do something. But as soon as you get out of the gate, you're already being taxed.
You're behind the 8 ball, right? You're
right. And folks don't want to be challenged that way, and it's difficult. It's definitely difficult. So my running and foundation
was small business, correct?
Was small business, and I went to the State House with the intention of lowering the minimum corporate tax from, to me, eliminating it. But I was able to, in the time that I was there, to be a strong advocate and get it lowered from 500 to 400. I managed. I will never get credit for that, but my bills were there, my advocacy was there, and they rolled it into the budget so that no single person would take credit. But I was never looking for credit. I was always looking to go back and say, my footprint was there. I had something to do with this. And it was important to me that the time that I spent away from my family, which was 4 years, is a long time.
Especially when your kids are teenagers. You don't want to miss out on those years.
You don't want to miss out on those things. But now I could look back, and there were 3 laws that I had passed while I was there, and I had that footprint. And when as a Republican, it's tremendously difficult for you to get passage,
especially in Rhode Island,
as a law. So when my first law passed for the developmentally disabled, I was ready to just say, okay, I'm all set. I accomplished something.
I peaked.
And everybody kept saying, you're a Republican, you'll never get anything done there. But the thing is that I work so well with others that I never went up there to cause a war. I went up there to get things done, to try to better, of course, my district primarily, but as a state representative, every time you vote, it affects the state. So when I was there, my advocacy for my legislation and also supporting legislation that was good for my district, and also fighting against legislation that was bad for my district. So I enjoyed my time there, and then I decided I wanted to run for higher office.
I remember.
And it to me, being I'll say an amateur, because really it is, I wanted to run for U.S. Senate. I had tremendous support from people around me. I found that I was much better candidate than anybody.
But the system is what it is in
the
state.
system is the system.
Particularly Sheldon Whitehouse.
Yeah, particularly. And I had such a hatred, not for him as a person, because I don't hate people. I hate what people do to other people.
Yeah.
And that's what we were looking
What did you do to get
at.
where you are? How many people did you step on? What policies have you implemented that have had such a detrimental effect on this state?
And it was brutal, and it frustrated me, but it motivated me. So I campaigned for a whole year, and one of the most difficult things for me to do is to accept that money was really what it was about. You could have, to me, I was a great candidate, but not well funded.
Yeah.
I raised $200,000, but that's all I felt like I was doing.
Yeah.
Trying to raise money. While to me that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It should be, who's the best person for the job?
The money should have nothing to do with it.
I understand you need it a little bit to get your message out there, but this day and age, you need $1 million to even entertain a statewide run. And that's sad because, of course, I was a strong advocate for the homeless. Think about all of those monies. If you just blocked it off, if you were running for a statewide office and you said, I'm going to raise as much money as I can, but I'm only permitted to use, let's say, $300,000 for a statewide race. Anything more than that could be distributed throughout the state for needs.
Yep.
And people will, when I tell you the reaction of people who said that, especially the electeds, looked at me and went, no, that's not the way it works. And I said, but that's where you buck the system. You don't let politics change you. You change politics. Yeah. And I was so different that way that I don't know that the timing was right. Everybody says everything is about timing.
Yeah.
I might have jumped too fast. I might have had to entertain the fact that I needed maybe 2 or 4 years to say, okay, I have to align. Even though I was invited out to D.C. twice, when I went out there, I made strong relationships. But as soon as they found out I was getting a primary opponent, they said, we can't touch you financially, until after. And then that's a story I can be very brief with you.
Just a big game.
It's a big game. I went into the convention and I lost by 5 votes. So it was a very big pill for me to swallow at the Republican State Convention. When they had the votes going into it, I was up by 12, and I noticed folks weren't there that promised me that they would be there. And that's the other side. That's the sad part of politics, because
you think they were persuaded.
You're correct. Your word is really everything. Yeah. And my word was always that if you and I, Steve, didn't agree on something, you knew that that's where I stood, and we moved on. And we found somewhere where we could have a conversation, that we weren't always fighting back and forth. And that's what we see in this toxic political atmosphere is you should be able to have a healthy debate. You should be, if you're a Trump person, you should be able to wear your hat, your shirt, and not feel that you're going to be singled out professionally, socially. Violence could be put on you. I've had conversations with people who say, Bobby, I see your social, and I have a very strong social media following. I tell it like it is.
Yeah, you do.
You know what? There are some people, sometimes I put that out there just to have dialogue so folks can have a healthy dialogue. And if it gets a little abrupt or a little inappropriate, I'll delete it, and then I'll send private messages and saying, this is not the way we do things here.
Yeah.
But to have that dialogue, to try to build that out from there, I'm only one person. I don't think that there's any miracle that can happen to change things. But because of the president and who he is now, and how tremendously vocal he is, he's totally bypassed. And I remember being younger, watching the news and coming home from work, or my father coming home from work, and we'd be sitting there, and you would watch news with the intention that what was coming out of their mouth was actually fact. So you're getting news and like you could say knowledge. And now it's so fabricated because it's not about, and even locally, it's not about being accurate. It's about being first.
Yes. That's
So
exactly
they
what
want
it
to be
is.
first with stuff, and then the retractions, even in print, come out later on. But you've already got a piece of information that you're sharing with
Correct.
your circle, and you think it's fact.
And now
And
it's
what
going
happens is,
viral.
and that's what happens. So the president now is got his way of getting his, like it, hate it, whatever you feel. It's his word. It actually comes out of his mouth.
And that's what I like about it, because you're not getting a filtered version. You're not
Correct.
getting right, wrong, or otherwise, emotional, reactive, whatever it is. You're getting him.
And the country, I think, because there was no middle to it, we went from Obama, who was tremendously reserved in his conversation, tremendously polished and positioned and prepared for just reading the teleprompter, to someone who just wings it. But he's speaking from a position where you know it's his word. You might not agree with it. You might not understand why he's saying what he says. But if you step back and say, all right, we're all human. Nobody's perfect. And you have the opportunity to say, how you feel, and really how you feel. But there was no middle to that. So he redlined it compared to where Obama was. So there was no preparation for that. So there's a lot of people who aren't prepared for that, and they're very uncomfortable with it. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that their comfort level isn't ready for it. But guess what? They're going to have another term. They're going to have another term of Trump to get used to it, because he's not going to lose.
I don't see who
He's
they
not
have
going
that
to
could
lose. The
potentially
other
even-
side are all jokers. It's like clowns. It's like Ringling Brothers.
You know, this is the sad thing, because I've never been a political nor a religious person. I just think they're two divisive topics by nature, depending on who your audience is. What I don't like about politics now is that it doesn't really come down to what are you going to do to fix things. It's what can you do to smudge the other guy's campaign. What can you do to put the other person down. It's like kids in a sandbox. I have a hard time watching debates. I have a hard time following a lot of this stuff, because it's not. You want genuine people with integrity to represent you and your neighborhood, your state, your city, your town. You don't get a lot of that. It's just people bickering like children, and that's an insult to children.
I feel like we need to concentrate more on state level stuff, as far as Democrat versus Republican. One of the big issues that we have in Rhode Island, I'm sure you know this, is the Democrats are, they send each other money in every state. When there's a Democrat governor running, money comes from all over the place. The small-time Republican politicians, they're not getting it.
Correct.
From other people. So there's a big splinter. The Republican Party, state by state, is incredibly splintered, and I think that's a part of the problem that we're running into.
So because Republicans are so conservative and fiscally conservative, and you're finding that the branch of government, Democrats, are willing to be lobbied at any point in time for any amount of money, and you could see that their war chest is probably 3 times the size of a Republican's. And I was lobbied by 2 groups, and I identify with both of those groups, and I advocated for both those groups. It was the Second Amendment community and the pro-life community. And I had no problem saying I'm being lobbied by 2 groups. And that's and all of my other campaign monies came from friends, family, and people throughout my district who are expecting me to do the right thing by them. But when you look at the lobby is toxic. It's toxic on a state level, and it's toxic on a national level. So when you're being lobbied, for those who are watching, lobbying means you're owned. You're owned. So if you're taking money, and like you said, your word is everything. Even if those Democrats, they give their word, it's just not for the best intention. Now, there are some conservative Democrats up there who more likely should have run as Republicans but won't win in their district. they have a conservative vote. You could see that. But even the conservative Democrats are outnumbered by the other Democrats. So I was able to get bipartisan legislation passed with the conservative Democrats, and you'll notice that they were advocating for good policy for the state. They're outnumbered. It didn't matter. So the lobby is toxic. If you take the money from those toxic lobbyists pushing the intention of self-serving interest, that's what happens. But me, I can identify by the Second Amendment community. Prior to being elected, I'm a huge Second Amendment guy. That's who I am.
Yeah.
I knock door to door. I'm an NRA guy. And if someone said to me, are you a gun guy? I would say yes. And they would say, well, I'm not. And I would say, okay. I said, but where can we come to the table and come? I'm not a one-issue individual. If I am elected to represent you, you have other issues and concerns. We're going to go up there. Fill me in. I want to be able to fight for you. Don't just shut the door because I'm a gun guy. I respect that you're not. Respect that I am, and let's go to the next issue.
It's funny if you think about it this way. People will date somebody that they know they can't stand certain qualities in that person. But when it comes to giving your vote to somebody, if there's one thing that you don't see eye to eye on, they'll just go in the complete opposite direction. Like someone will waste years of their life with the wrong companion for the same exact reason, but they won't have that conversation. A lot of people have a hard time vocalizing what bothers them. They're either too over the top with their explanation, or they're too reserved and never get their point across. So that's got to be a difficult conversation, especially when you're knocking door to door, asking people just that way. Okay, we don't agree on this, but why don't we let's come to some common ground here. That's a hard that's sales. I mean, that's hard to try to get somebody to even open up about that.
It is, and it's very difficult because the time that you're campaigning is the time that folks are coming home from work.
Correct.
They don't want to hear anything. They just want to come in.
Yep.
So you have approximately 3 minutes to say, this is who I am. I'm so sorry for interrupting your evening. You might be receiving something in the mail. I didn't want you to just hold this and look at it and make a judgment. Yeah. I wanted you to hear from me, be able to say something to me, ask me a question, and that's why I'm here. I understand if you don't want to talk anymore this evening. Most people said, thank you for coming. There probably 80% said thank you for coming when your information comes. If I need you or want to speak to you, you're available, yes. And then the other 20%, they really wanted to talk about it. They were very gung-ho about their frustrations and wanted to... they wanted to talk about it, and I was excited about that. But I want to go back to something that you said about, the way electeds behave and the smudging of character and stuff like that. If you have a strong platform, you don't necessarily need to smudge somebody else.
No, you don't.
The problem is that folks... they like the entertainment value. They like the entertainment value because they get a bigger reaction than saying, oh, I lowered this tax or I implemented this. They want to hear, this guy is coming for blood on this other guy and this and that. That's what they want. They want to see that. And
it's like wrestling.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I had been drawn into it several times, and you don't even know because you're in the middle of it, and then you step away and you go, this isn't me.
Yeah.
And you say, I got to pull back. This isn't me. This type of behavior isn't me. Like I said to you, politics can bring out the worst in an individual. And in my time there, I constantly reminded myself, don't let politics change me. Let me change the politics. And it's very difficult because it is, I don't want to say confrontational, but it's a blood sport. It really is. Politics, and you have to be prepared because they come after everyone. They come after you. They come after your family. They come after anything that you ever done in your life. And you need to be prepared. And, fortunately, I have a relative that calls me Dudley Do-Right. I was very fortunate that if you opened a closet on me, you weren't going to see all of these skeletons and this and that. And you have to be prepared to know that there are going to be several personal attacks, and which is a shame. Because you're supposed to be there as a public servant, advocacy, and you're human. But there's a line where you have to be super professional. Yeah. And there were some elected officials up there that their only intention was to go out there and to tarnish character. And then there were other ones that were just like me, just family people, moms and fathers, wanted to just go up there, do what they had to do, get in their car and leave. Yeah. And that's what I did.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is, because if there were more people like you sitting in positions of power, then I don't think we'd be facing a lot of the same problems. Just to prove myself right, several months ago, I started looking up old presidential debates from like the 80s, like with Reagan, Jimmy Carter before that. And you could see, like, they're still arguing the same topics. It's like, you're talking like 20, 30 years later, still arguing over the same stuff. So it's either, I actually on one of the debates, I caught a Ted Danson commercial from the 80s when he was on Cheers talking about climate change. So like, this shit's been going on forever. So whether or not it's just these are the topics, the speaking points, but if that's the case, if we've been having the same argument for 25, 30, 35 years.
Then who's solving the problems?
Thank you. Nobody.
And that's frustrating because...
Yeah, but realistically, he's getting so much done. Nobody wants to acknowledge it or talk about it. You may not like the man as an individual, but he's doing the job that he was elected to do, and he's doing exactly what he said he would do.
And it's exciting to see that. I mean, just as a country, it's exciting to see that. As a Republican, it's even more exciting.
Yeah.
Because you're able to turn around and say, listen, let's not talk about anything. Let's just talk about results.
Yeah.
Not all of the things that are before it. Let's look at the end game. What happened at the end? Tell me what happened at the end. You satisfied with the end? Well, then that's fine. Because, listen, you're going to make pasta different than the way I'm going to make pasta. But in the end, Sunday, we're going to have the pasta dinner. We're going to have the meatballs. It's going to be beautiful. I didn't ask you how long you boiled the water, what you put in it.
I don't care how you got there.
I don't care how you got there. But you know what? We're having results in the end, and it's exciting to see that. And that's why it will be a landslide.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why you're seeing the other side. They're going to be 12, 13, 16 people.
To try to take away votes from him. It's not going to matter.
You know, even the other side is debating nonsense. But to the fact that one of the things that I felt so strongly about was illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we're looking at it at this president, we're looking at it at the past president, we're looking at it with Clinton.
Everything's his fault.
So Clinton had said the same thing.
So did Obama.
As Trump. Obama said it when he was a senator.
Obama was the deporter-in-chief.
Yep, deporter-in-chief. So he became president and said the same thing. You're looking at Donald Trump as someone who you think is a racist, or if you identify with him, you're a racist. That's not reality. We're a country of laws. Okay? So when I was at the State House, there was a strong push for driver's licenses for those who were here illegally. Mm-hmm. When I sat there in the room by myself. I was the only rep or senator to fight against Gina Raimondo because it was a campaign. Promise. I said, how can we reward individuals?
Thank you.
Okay, who are here illegally with a driver's license?
Go sneak into Mexico. See what they do to you.
I said, and my little statement was, no papers, no privileges. There is no entitlements. No, everybody works hard, follows the rules, and doesn't break the laws. So why are we going to go and give you a driver's license?
If that's the case, why do any of us who were born and raised here have to follow the laws if nobody else has to?
Correct.
You're turning it into Tombstone at that point. Yeah. So I agree with you 100%. You know, it's funny you bring up the whole illegal immigration, because that was literally one of the topics from like the mid '80s. The presidential campaigns.
It's always been.
It's the same thing all the time.
It's always been. Everybody wants to come here. It literally is an exceptional place.
It is. It is. So, you could literally accomplish anything. But I think I have the solution to all this, and this is going to sound crazy. You invade Mexico, take it over, extend it as just make Texas bigger. You'd be doing all these people a favor, and at that point, you could do whatever. You could probably like wipe out the drug cartels, because now you own that country. You can handle them however you want. You put that to bed, and then you stop all the illegal immigration. I'm thinking you could do this with a small infantry unit, couple of tanks. I don't know if they're going to throw bananas or guacamole at you. I don't know what they're doing down there. But you can do this and just take them. Right, remember the Alamo? This has been done before. We can do this. I don't know if we fought Mexico in that war.
So I blacked out. Yeah. I blacked out. As soon as you said this is the craziest thing you'll ever hear, I just blacked out.
And we lost the Alamo, by the way.
Did we really? Yeah. Well, now's our chance to take it back.
Thank you for being a historian. Thank you.
I was sleeping during history class.
So, I mean, illegal immigration is...
We may buy Greenland, though.
What are we going to do with Greenland?
Use it.
For what?
Well, there's all kinds of stuff there.
Are they gonna?
Resources and
can you attach that landmass to us?
It's also far closer to Russia on
the
East Coast.
You can keep an eye on them.
We have. Think about why we bought Alaska.
We like moose?
So you notice as soon as that came out, now that you brought that up, because I found it very entertaining when it came out, Trump said, he's having that type of conversation. Immediately, the other side said, well, now he's going to have to acknowledge climate change. And he's going to have to acknowledge what's happening there. And let's see where his position continues to go. If his intention is to make the purchase, he's going to have to identify what's going on here because it's right in front of his face. So it's never productive. It's always destructive. Everything is a destructive.
How can we get him on it?
Yeah.
How can we
what's
zap?
the angle?
How can we zap? And this is, with all due respect, this isn't a guy who's of tremendous political science background. This is a strong businessman who came in running on a business platform to fix our economy.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. So now we're looking at a better economy. We're looking at many different aspects where he's strong on the fly. He is. I have to say he's strong on the fly, but he is so gutsy and so brave to be going to these other countries where no other president would go.
Like North Korea?
Because they were, yes, because they were so scared. But he said, all right, maybe his philosophy is this is the day I reign, this may be the day I die. But you know what? My position dictates that I need to do this.
Yeah.
So I don't know what goes through his mind, nor would I ever want to be the president of the United States of America. The intention is not even there because the stress level is going to be so tremendous.
Oh, God, I can't even
But
imagine.
I have to say, if you grade the guy, he's not doing bad.
No, he's really not.
He's doing very well. So
No, most people don't like him because he's so open and he doesn't filter what he says. The fake news, calling out to certain people during the conference. I love him for that.
yeah,
I don't want to see somebody watered down. Just tell me how it really
That's
is.
what I was just going to say. I don't want to see anything watered down. I want to see someone
Give
with
me the
the
facts,
intention.
man. Yeah.
Give me the facts, and let's move on from there.
So you brought up a good point before. You said you were a Second Amendment guy, and I know Matt is another big Second Amendment guy. This is kind of a touchy subject for a lot of people. I don't have children in a school. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but they're coming out with like bulletproof backpacks now. So I just want to hear your side of this. I know where you stand on it, but I'd love to hear your explanation as if I was someone you were trying to gather my vote on, what there is no way to handle this. There's no perfect solution for any
There's no
problem.
perfect solution.
So what are your thoughts on what's currently taking place between the mass shootings, the school shootings, things like that? Like, what are some things that you think could be set up to kind of get your arms around the situation, so to speak?
So, obviously, it's a very touchy subject. I have 2 children, too. So
that's-
immediately I put myself in the position of, while my children at school, they should be safe while being educated.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but what type of drills have they been trained in at this point, the kids in the schools? Do they tell you?
They didn't disclose anything to us as a parent. I mean, as far as they know, I mean, it's just it would probably be reflective of a fire drill, if anything. But more specifically, if there's an intention of a shooter, I don't know if there's schoolroom lockdowns or anything at this point.
The reason I brought that up is because my older brother, I have 2 nieces, and they've both been trained on what to do in an active shooter response. And it's funny because working for Lifespan in the corporate office, we're down the street from the hospitals. Things happen all the time in the hospitals. The way my brother described this drill, it's the same exact drill that we were taught in a medical setting, in an office setting. Bar the door, pick up weapons, yell real loud. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, could this all be avoided if you just better protect? And again, this is just my ignorance speaking, but if you better protected that school, if you had an armed guard, which I know you don't want to go that route. But again, this is my ignorance.
So I like that route. So
that's
when
where
you
my
were
head
asking
goes.
me, I kind of like that route because they, from what I remember being in junior high, I was in military school for high school, totally different environment, subject matter, and so on and so forth. But in the public school, we're looking now, and this would help everything, is to have more than one resource officer there. And I think it builds respect for police and law enforcement because we're seeing now, I mean, it's not there. And it's tremendously sad. These individuals kiss their wife, kiss their husband goodbye, put their gear on, and they go out to risk their lives.
They're not just cops anymore. They're attorneys. You have to be everything all in one now.
It's unbelievable. But I think if a child getting into a junior high and everything like that as they're growing sees that resource
As a
officer
protective.
has that
Interacts
respect.
with them.
But you're
Yeah,
talking
exactly.
about somebody who's right there.
Yeah.
So I had this conversation because there's no perfect answer
You
to
can't
it.
prevent every tragedy.
I don't think that any individual has it, but what we have to look at is if you have a school, you need to make sure that the school, and I was always big on that bulletproof glass, because if someone is trying to get in, the secured doors, I mean, they're saying this costs this costs that, but a child's life is priceless.
I want to touch on that before we. Does a school superintendent need to make $180,000 to $200,000 a year? Like
No.
I'm not good. That's
but
a
then
bit
you get
excessive.
into consolidation. That's a whole other
Yeah,
thing.
it's-
So I mean, you could consolidate several of these school districts that's been proposed, but every one of these school, that's a whole different.
It's a whole
story.
Pandora's box.
It's a whole Pandora's box. But back to the school safety, you could secure them while they're in school, but what happens? And this was brought up to me. We have the metal detectors. We have the bulletproof glass. We have trained teachers. If they want to carry, they can carry. I support that. They're protecting the child in the room. Whatever the intention is there. But what happens when they come out of the school and
Yeah.
they go into the bus line? Now they're exposed.
Yeah.
What happens there, Bobby?
Yeah.
And I said, that's a good point. That's where the factor comes into play.
Yeah.
There is no perfect answer. But if we're addressing this, right now it's not being addressed.
No, it's just a
So
topic.
let's get to the point where we're addressing it, and we're not saying let's take guns away from everybody. But you know what? When you take guns away from people, let's remember the people who have these guns, okay, they're doing it to protect themselves, protect their families. You're going to take it away. Someone's going to break into their house who have illegally acquired these weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So criminals don't follow these laws. We can have as many laws in the books as you want.
They're gonna break them.
They're going to break them. So we have to look at what makes sense. And that doesn't make sense. But we need to address all of these things where you're looking at, it came up about the metal detectors in the windows. And then all of a sudden it came out, well, these schools are not structurally sound. Just the foundation of the schools are not structurally. We have to start there. They deter.
They deflect. That's all.
They pivot.
Yeah, of course they do.
They don't want to talk. We need to rebuild the schools. We need to do this. We need to. I get all that. But now we're talking about guns now. You're talking about the fact that you don't want a teacher trained.
You know, a rebuttal to that would be if the schools are so structurally unsafe, why is my kid in there every day? What?
Well, I gotta
Why
tell
did you wait so long to
I gotta
address
tell you,
this?
I've seen the Providence schools.
It ain't just the buildings. Look at the Providence schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Providence schools. And a lot of the teachers are very vocal about it. They don't want to teach in those schools. They don't want to teach in that atmosphere. There are inhalants that possibly asbestos. I mean, possibly mold, lead, anything.
Yeah.
These kids are supposed to go to school, feel comfortable in school, being educated in school. I mean, we know what's going on in the Providence school system. It was just graded. So there are several different things, and it is a Pandora's box, but
Yeah.
we can't be afraid to address it when the box happens to get open and say I'm overwhelmed. We need to address things.
Oh, you have to,
We can't be afraid to have conversations.
But then at the same time, don't you feel like a lot of the discussions that they have during the electoral years are kind of geared towards the wrong things? Like people, I think politicians that tend to talk about you waste a lot of time talking about shit that really doesn't make a difference. Like, okay, climate change, is that really relevant right now? Like, why are we talking about climate change? I'm not saying to not pay attention to it, but for the most part, like me, most working class people, what I want to see is, are there jobs to be attained? How does my paycheck look? And, how's your 401k? Things that, like, most people relate a politician to what's happening with them financially. It's not your fault, but there's policies in place that are going to affect how much money we can make, what's coming out of our check, what's going on with our retirement. Those are things that are tangible, that people could see every week.
I used to call them front burner issues.
Yeah.
So while representing, I mean, you're a unique dynamic where every facet of your district matters. On a statewide race, every part of the state matters. So you're going to find that what's a front burner issue in Coventry, Providence, the inland part of the state
Yeah.
isn't the same as those that border
It's
the
going to
water.
vary by demographic.
So folks that are towards the coastline, climate change does matter to them. They're
Yeah.
concerned that the water level is going to rise for those who strongly believe in climate change, and they feel that is fact, and the fact that their house might not be there in 30 years. The realities of this are
I can't afford to live near the beach. I don't have that problem.
yeah. But some of these funny little antidotes that came out were, well, if your house is going to be there in 20 years, why are they giving you a 30-year mortgage at the bank? So there were some of these funny things I was having with bankers and just normal conversation. But I appreciated those people on the water, on the coastline, and said, I understand this is an issue and concern to you.
You don't want those
I'll
energy mills.
acknowledge, but I'm not gonna front on them and say, listen, that's not my meat and potatoes in this stew right now.
Yeah.
Everything matters. Everything matters, and as soon as you
That's true. You make a good point.
make yourself limited, you're half the rep
Yeah.
or senator than you should be.
So there's no perfect answer to the gun issue, the Second Amendment issue. But what are some of the things right now that you think are attainable, whether it's something that was on your platform or someone else's platform? I don't know, try to cite like one or two things that you think that we're close to getting to in Rhode Island to kind of turn things in another direction, if there's such a thing.
So we're catching the national trickle is what we're doing, because on the state level, it's just not happening. I mean, we're at the bottom of business friendliness.
We ranked 50th, I think, right?
49th, 48th. It bounces back and forth, and we're not going to break 40. We're not going to break 40.
No,
We
that would
have
be such a
businesses.
monumental thing.
Our governor was putting out incentives that were just should have, in my personal opinion, she was trying to draw in these companies with intention, with incentive, and then those incentives. You have small businesses that are fourth, fifth generation that have been here that are suffering from tremendous undue burdens, other than the fact that government doesn't care about them. This would have been the acknowledgement. Let's take care of the small businesses. Let's rebuild from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Doing that, in that intention, maybe those other businesses will say, wow, look at the way Rhode Island is taking care of small business. And you hear it, small business is the backbone of the community. You hear everybody campaign and say it, but policy doesn't reflect it.
No, it doesn't.
And that's why when I was saying, when you're looking at that, there's a revenue source of taxation against these businesses, because we're so floppy as a state. They're trying to tax everything they possibly can, which is a terrible shame.
Everything.
So going in there with the intention of, you have to be pro-business, you have to be pro-family, and you have to acknowledge what community is saying. The community is saying this, and this. Well, our policy should reflect this, and this. That way the communities don't reduce in size and move away.
Do you think that the governor's position, mayor or governor position in any state, has gotten so big where they've lost touch with communities like where I live, where you live? You know, so you spend all your time in the city and going to fundraisers and dinners and this and that, where you become completely disconnected with a lot of the constituents from out the state.
You know, touch on that. And this happens both with Gina Raimondo and Alorza. They're constantly out of the state.
Yeah.
They're constantly spending tax dollars to go to mayor's conventions and governors.
That does
balls
nothing
and all
for
this,
us.
And meeting lobbyists and all this stuff.
So Raimondo and Alorza are two peas in a pod in terms of not spending quality time here. So the lack of time that you're not in touch, like you said, you don't really know what's going on.
No, you don't.
You really don't know. And her intention wasn't to be governor. It was to be called governor. It was made to be something else. I was the treasurer. I was the governor. And now I'm ready for a national position, because you know what? Look at my resume. She still hasn't taken her training wheels off. Her leadership capabilities of running this state, they're non-existent. And she's petrified. I think personally she has a calendar on her wall, and she constantly checks off the days.
Just counts down the days. Yeah.
She counts down the days because she is not in touch with the press like she should be. The people
until she's out of office, or until she runs for Senate.
I don't know where she's gonna go. I don't know what she's gonna do. We hear things. But if she ends up in Jack Reed's seat, which is what we're hearing, people are funny. They said, well, she's out of our hair. I said, no, that's not the way to look at that. I said, let me explain to you why that's worse. I said, she needs to be called out every single day on her lack of intention of representation and her incapability of performing. And if that happens, I just see the overwhelming factor of you can actually see it when things were going really and continually still go terribly wrong with DCYF. Children are passing away. She has no answer. She had somebody in the position, the director, was completely incapable.
She supported her when the workers of DCYF came out and said, we have no confidence in her.
No confidence.
She propped her back up. And now where are they?
So it's a scary thing because what happens is, as a result, the children are passing away. They're living in unhealthy environments. It's sad because she has no heart. She is a cold-hearted
No, I don't think
individual.
she cares. I think this is literally just a ploy to get into a bigger national position.
Correct.
I think you're 100% right.
Now, Alorza's situation with the city of Providence is a total disaster.
Boondoggle.
Yeah,
it's
what
a total
mess.
It's a total disaster. But his travel out of the state and wherever he goes, what is he doing? Is he running away? Because I don't know. I really don't know, because we look to see where he's gone and potentially what the connection could be to Rhode Island. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing there.
And particularly in Providence, it's hard to not judge any Providence mayor against Buddy Cianci, who brought in the Providence Bruins, redirected the Providence River, did all these amazing things, brought a whole bunch of business in. So it's really hard to not compare people to him. And Alorza couldn't be farther from
Correct.
Buddy Cianci.
He couldn't shine his shoes. He couldn't shine his shoes.
Buddy Cianci was fantastic.
He was, and he had such a presence and charisma where you actually wanted to be around him.
Yeah.
Just for conversation. You just wanted to be around him when he walked the hill. I mean, Federal Hill, it's just not the same anymore. It's just not the same anymore.
Look how many people get beat, wind up in the hospital, stabbed, shot. It's not the same.
It's terrible.
That generation of people who kept the hill in check are gone. If they're not gone, there's no sway anymore. It's just that used to be a destination in Providence, and it's just not anymore.
It's not a destination, and there are several wonderful restaurants there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in conversation with people. If you're not out of there by 10:30,
good luck.
Good luck.
It's the Wild West.
Yep, good luck, and that should never feel that way. You should feel like you stroll down Main Street at East Greenwich, and that's the way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it used to be. So, could they change? Absolutely. Yeah, as dramatic as the change happened this way, it could happen the other way. But you need leadership.
Yeah.
You need someone who's going to be present, like you're saying. If they're not in the city, if they're not in the state, how can you have a positive effect on anything if you're not present? And folks see that, but what I don't understand is how did she win by so much? Well, we're seeing now that the Secretary of State, Nellie Gorbea, the voter rolls, they weren't accurate. They were a little fraudulent. So, but now things are passed. Things are done. But when you're over 50% and you're the worst governor, ever.
And you can't bump into somebody on the street who voted for her.
You can't.
Why would you admit it? Why would you admit it?
Yeah, you can't. You're 100% right. You can't find anyone to say anything nice about her.
Nope.
I don't care what neighborhood you're in.
Yep.
They don't exist.
It's an odd thing. It really is, and it's disturbing, of course, because there were, I supported Alan Fung as his intention for his second time around to run.
Fung.
And it's like, didn't even come close.
I know. I went and sat down and talked with him and his wife at their office, and they were like the nicest.
Yep.
Most caring, people, very supportive and, really looking out for Rhode Island. And I thought that he was an excellent, he has an excellent made in America story. His father came here as an immigrant, did everything that he could to become, to integrate and become American and raise his son to be a hardworking, strong individual, I think Fung would have been an excellent governor.
You know what the other thing is? Not just his story that's so wonderful and compelling. It's that he has a proven track record of looking at Cranston and taking it on a larger scale. Because that's what his campaign was. Look what I did with Cranston. All I'm doing is I'm putting this thing on steroids.
Yeah.
We're going to hit every city in town with that same type of business friendliness, the same type of governing that we need. And it would have worked because it worked in Cranston. So give the guy a shot. Give him a shot. We know her first term was a disaster.
Oh, God.
Why? If you're going to travel the road, here's an analogy.
62 million with the UHIP.
Yeah.
62 million, or was it 65? It might have been
Somewhere in the 60s.
Which person and for him to personally identify with a situation that happened with a family member of his, he had personal impact to that. But here's an analogy for you. She had a terrible term. It was a complete disaster. Rhode Island needed a new direction. Would you continue to hit that same pothole if you know it's there? She's the pothole.
Yeah.
Give somebody else a shot. She can't get it done. She cannot get it done.
It blows my mind. Go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but I talked to Steve when we talked about you coming on. I was like, great, I'm excited to talk to you because I'm a big fan of yours. What could you say maybe to other people in Rhode Island who were in the position that you were in, where because this is a big thing in the Second Amendment community right now, is a lot of people are talking like, hey, we need to get out and we need to run, we need to get the right people in office. What kind of advice could you give, local construction worker, plumber, hardworking, family man in Rhode Island or woman in Rhode Island, give them some advice to step up and take this mantle?
So it's a tremendous sacrifice. There's no question, but it's rewarding because it immediately impacts you as an individual and your community. And folks have come up to me and said, they're intimidated by how much you have to raise and what you have to do and will this happen and will this happen. And I said, that's the other side putting out fear factors. I said, you're a perfect candidate. You know why? You got the heart, you got the frustration, you got the motivation. Anybody can run, and anybody should run. Anybody who has a good heart and intention and will never be tarnished will help the state because it's being destroyed by those who are self-serving.
Bled dry is really what it feels like.
And that's what happens. That goes back to the fact that change politics. Don't let it change you. But those folks, even if they don't want to run, be part of the process. Go there, testify like you were saying. Let your voice be heard because it mattered. When I sat in those committees, we heard everybody. And they waited hours to be heard. Hours to be heard. And it mattered. It showed 3.5 hours of waiting, and you heard their voice, and they were passionate.
Till 3 o'clock in the morning.
And then something else, if you look at the other side of it, when you were testifying, did you see all the chairs full? No. A lot of those reps and senators, they're not there. They're gone. They come in for attendance, and they're gone. So that's the other thing. Look who's not listening. Look who's not listening. But like you're saying, the plumber, the electrician, the teacher, any of these people who are part of the community, they have a good intention and a good heart to serve the public. I mean, I'm a funeral director. All I knew was how to listen and be compassionate. And I took that as me being genuine because that's who I am. That's who I am as a state rep. I'm compassionate and I'm a good listener. And I think that was what was missing. It's not having a tremendous education, an Ivy League person, because I found that those Ivy Leaguers, they only want to hear their echo.
Yeah.
They only want to hear themselves. They're the smartest person in the room. I walked into the room like a sponge. I wanted to absorb. I wanted to grow in a conversation. I didn't want to dead the conversation. As soon as my statement was out, no. I spent the time. So run.
Voices are
if
going
you
to
want
help
to
you
run
shape
for
your
office,
platform.
run.
Yeah.
You heard it.
Yeah.
I'm going to run.
You should run.
The size of the closet that I have with things hiding in it.
So people neglect to think about is the smaller positions. Town. You know, people don't even run for
School
their town.
committee.
School committee.
School
stuff
committee.
Like that. Those things are super important.
School committee is tremendously important because if you look at a lot of the city and town budgets, it's where a lot of the money goes.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there, you're actually being part of that process, especially if your children are in the school system. You're directly connected by decision making that is there. So that's a very good point. City and town councils. Those are very, very important positions. That's it. Really, if you're even thinking about it, you should do it.
See, I thought this would be an amazing conversation to have with you because you have both the experience on that side of the fence working in politics, but your family is so dug in with the funeral homes. Nardolillo Funeral Home, we'll have a discount code for your services at the end of the show. I don't know what it's going to be, but we'll have one.
There's probably not too many people in Rhode Island who don't know your last name, like hands down. Like,
and I would hope that when it's heard on a positive note, because a lot of folks, if you hear someone's last name, you might hear some negative with that. So my family for many years has done their due diligence to stay very positive on that positive note, and I'm proud to continue that with, like I said, B and Dudley do right.
And it was amazing too, and I'm not just saying this, but it was awesome to have you marry Brianna and I, because I never made my confirmation, and there's a rumor flying around because I shoved a priest. It's true. I didn't do that, but it was fun. You made the whole process fun. You took the nerves right out of it. You made everything about that memorable, and then you got on a plane to North Carolina afterwards. You didn't even stick around. I watched your father sing Frank Sinatra at my wedding, though, on the other hand, which was fantastic.
So, briefly, this should be where it begins. And just do that. But from the first time I met you, this is the funny part. You're at my aunt's house. And
in Situate.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're at my aunt's house with your girlfriend, now your wife. And it was at a pool party. Never met him in my whole life. We talked from the minute it was like 4.5 hours we were
Probably.
there. Just from the connection on the same kinds of things, of life and everything like that. And then from there, the friendship grew into obviously what we have now is a complete disaster. But
Soft train wreck, I like to call it.
But that's something that builds, you know what I mean? And I thought that was the coolest thing. As I was driving there, I'm saying to myself, we met each other at my aunt's house. A small conversation turned into...
I didn't even know we were supposed to be there that night. And it just, I met your cousins. Your family's fantastic.
Thanks.
I have never been, and I say this with all sincerity, every single member of your family, one is just as accommodating, caring, loving, nurturing, and just amazing people right down the line. I haven't met one of you yet, anyone in your family, that doesn't just open their doors, their kitchens, their home, everything to anyone that walks through. And it's an absolute treat to call you my friend. And I mean
Thanks,
that.
I appreciate that.
No,
Ditto.
you're amazing,
Yep, ditto,
amazing guy.
Ditto.
And now you got Matt in the circle.
Yep. You can do the quick fire, crossfire. Your crossfire questions.
These are questions that I literally put together after we hung up
Are
the phone.
they yes and
today.
no? They're yes and no now.
They could be yes and no questions.
Okay.
I'd like to think that they would elicit a better response, but a simple yes and no will do just fine. We good?
Yes.
Now, here's the trick. Matt, I need you to be the referee for this. We need the gaze the whole time.
Okay.
I need to see the sincerity. If I so chose at this moment, do you think you could defeat me in a strongman competition?
No.
I like that answer. This is one you would know, and you're familiar with Providence. Is it true that if you don't stick your pinky out while sipping espresso on Federal Hill, you will not be allowed to dine that evening?
Correct.
I knew that. Would you rather dip your bread in marinara or alioli? And I need reasons.
Aliol. I prefer it.
That's it?
That's it.
Man knows what he likes. Is it true that having the privilege of marrying Brianna and I was on par or perhaps more exciting than taking your own vows?
Just below.
Just below. Okay, well, I'll take that. So this is one that I've been dying to ask because I feel like you actually know this person individually, both of them. But seeing as how you served in a political position, Can you please verify that Chuck Norris does in fact sleep with one eye open strictly because of the Clintons?
I would say so, yes.
Have you ever been pulled over for speeding or any other infraction of the road? Paused before engaging the officer, looked him dead in the eye and said, "Bro, I know Steve Bardi," and then was let go?
No, I actually ended up in more trouble.
Okay. By mentioning my name, probably got a cavity search, depending on what town you're in. All right. There's more, but I need to get close with this one. Lean in for me. Be honest. Matt, you're my witness. You thought Brianna was going to divorce me by now, didn't you?
It was a 70% shot.
Okay.
70%.
All right. This is a no-brainer because I get this a lot. But be truthful. You stand Vin Diesel and I side by side, same clothes. You can't tell us apart, can you?
I'll lie to you, yes.
Thank you. This one, this is a rumor I'm going to spread, but I have a feeling you've probably done this. Is it true that you were once thrown out of a Planet Fitness for running and grabbing the pizza on Thursday, yelling, "Free lunch, bitches!" and then taking off?
I can't confirm or deny.
Okay. Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if you and I were related?
Aren't we?
We should be.
Aren't we?
It feels right.
I think so.
Yeah. We're having that moment. And then finally, what's the likelihood that you're going to actually hit me with a restraining order after these questions?
No. This was the... First of all, this is awesome.
Thank you.
This is
It's
awesome.
a lot of fun.
It's a tremendous amount of fun. It's something I was looking forward to since you...
Likewise. You were the
called
first
me.
person I called. When I dreamt up this whole thing, I think I reached out to you about a logo or something like that. And you were the first person I contacted because we really do, all kidding aside, we have phenomenal conversations, chemistry. We bounce off each other well. I thought...
We've been saying, too, since we first started talking, like, oh, yeah, well, you know, hopefully we can get Bobby Nardolillo on.
You've been a topic multiple times. Like, I've been dying to sit down and do this with you, and I sincerely hope that we do it numerous times. It's a lot
I
of
look
fun.
forward to it. And I'm an open book, too, because I think folks shouldn't have to look at you and guess. They should just know.
So here's what I think should happen is next time you should present me with 10 questions.
Oh, I don't think I'd have a problem with
And
that.
I threw you softballs, just so you know.
I don't think I would have a problem with
I literally
that.
put that together on my lunch break in my car today. All right, Bobby, listen, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank
and
you
I'm
for
looking
having
forward
me.
to doing this again.
Yep.
Matthew, again, thank you for all your hard work. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the Bardi Shop on YouTube. And look forward to seeing you again. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Boom. That was a good show.